I used to work at the Ritz-Carlton.
Were you an executive vice president or something?
I played a very big role there. I'm not allowed to talk about it, but what we would do in valet is we would have microphones. Setting yourselves apart in the customer service field is like what we try to do at the law firm.
It's going to take the work. Like, you have to work hard in the beginning. I mean, you have to continue that work ethic, because if you don't have the foundation of doing that, there's no way you're going to succeed at that.
All right, so we're back here for episode 3 of the HHJ podcast. We're going to talk about Michael's workout routines. Sorry.
Why are you laughing so hard? You
had that one saved, didn't you?
The fact that you're laughing so hard actually hurts more than what
It
Adam
took me so
said.
much not to laugh when I was saying that. Okay, ready.
You had that.
All right.
All right. Let's talk about hair surgeries and what you look like in 2013.
Dude, listen. I slapped you. You don't got to cut off my legs, all right? Retaliatory. All right, so we're back here for episode 3 of the HHJ podcast, and I think this time we kind of wanted to talk about, the main nuts and bolts of how we started running a business and kind of the business aspect. Then we wanted to go in some visuals that we use in trial, and then maybe just kind of go more into depth about that. So why don't we start with you, Elliot? What do you think the hardest part was of just about starting a business from ground zero?
Well, I mean, I think it's just hard because we didn't really know how to run a practice, right? We had to pick it up as we go. We're finding each other's strengths on who wants to do the stuff with accounting, who wants to do the marketing piece, like really figuring that out early on. I think was tough, but we were able to do it. So I feel really fortunate because, we had a couple different stumbles early on, but we figured it out, and then we've figured out what we like to do, right? Because not all of us want to do the stuff that has to do with the finances. Not all of us want to do the stuff that's going to help the firm grow. So just kind of figuring out the pieces. And it's different for us because we have 3 of us, right? Like other firms, it's just maybe one person that's like the head of the firm, and for us, we had 3. So I think that helped us. So
I feel like a lot of people have reached out to us. They might be starting their own practice, solo practitioner, or maybe like a partnership. What would you say, Mike, that what was the most important thing that we did right, starting off, and what do you think has changed most significantly from when we began to where we are now?
Yeah, I think that the most important thing of where we got a lot of traction was attorney referrals from the bat. We had a big community of friends and people that we tried cases against, had cases against, worked with, that sent us a lot of cases off the bat. So I tell everybody that's starting a firm, make sure you tap into all of your resources and you let everybody know exactly what you're doing, because that's the free way to market. Over time, you have to figure out how to budget your money and where to place in marketing, because some things work better than others. And if you don't have a certain amount to spend towards one thing, it's like you're just burning that money. So you need to build slowly on how to spend money for marketing.
That's actually a good point. Let's stick with marketing, because, really, you don't have a business unless you have customers. And I feel like all 3 of us were really focused on our marketing. We didn't have any money, but we were really focused on how are we presenting ourselves to the public, to our friends, and trying to get clients, which is really marketing. So tell me what you remember about that.
Yeah, well, I think about this all the time because we've fostered relationships, have friendships with people that gave us opportunities when we weren't proven yet. We didn't have verdicts, we didn't have the results. And yet we had a group of people that wanted to believe in us and actually thought that we could do a really good job on these cases that we hadn't tried before. So, those people, they're like everything, at least for me, they're everything, because they literally gave me a chance to be able to try their case, or gave me the opportunity to go in court and to fight on these cases when we didn't have the verdicts yet. Of course, we thought we could do it, but it's different when you think that you could do it versus when you've already done it, right? Mm-hmm. And so without those opportunities from people that wanted to give us a chance, we couldn't have done what we've done. So, no, it's everything.
And it's also kind of hard to look back thinking, where we are now, what did we do for marketing when we first started? But someone came up to me recently. He just started a firm, and he's like, where should I put my money? Should I invest in this? Should I, get an SEO? Should I hire this marketing company? And I was thinking back, I'm like, well, we didn't have any money. We didn't really hire a marketing company. We didn't have a presence on social media. We didn't have a presence on the internet. But like Mike was saying, our number one asset that literally got us through our first couple of years was referrals. So really relationships with other attorneys. And my advice to him was like, listen, network with everyone you can, nurture those relationships, ask for cases from other lawyers that don't want them or help on cases. You think that's still your advice when you're just starting out, is just relationships and networking?
Yeah, I mean, when we started, the big thing that we were doing was we were emailing people every week. So we would each set a goal of, let's say it was 10 to 15 lawyers per week. And we would send out cold emails saying, hey, I saw that you're a trust and estates attorney in San Diego. I just opened up a personal injury firm. If you have if you have any referrals, please send them my way. I'll send back your way. And 9 out of 10 would not respond. Maybe 1 out of 10 or 2 or 3 out of 10 would respond. And we build a connection with that person. And then every case that came to our firm that was outside of what we do, like family law, I would make sure that that lead got passed to a family law attorney, whether it was a new introduction saying, hey, I saw you do family law, like somebody reached out, I saw your name on this website, here's my number in case you ever need a personal injury attorney. So nothing was there was no dried up leads. They were coming in, we were giving them out, and then we were also building connections every week where every Friday, the three of us would meet and we'd say, okay, show me the 10 people you reached out to this week. And we'd keep each other accountable. So we're building this war chest of just all these clients. And I've met with a dozen lawyers that want to go to lunch, asked how we started our firm, asked for advice. And I tell all of them, that's the number one thing that we were doing off the bat for years that generated business, and it's free, but I think people just won't do it. It's just hard work and they won't do it and they get lazy. But
it's boring.
It's boring and it's tedious, and it's a
tedious.
pain, but at the end of the day, if you don't have the resources or money to throw into marketing, you got to do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think you got to figure out what you're good at too, though, right? Because for us, I never felt we were going to do the marketing or we were going to try to get the referrals if we didn't have the skill set, right? Obviously for us, we wanted to try cases. That's always our goal. We wanted to be able to go in the courtroom and try cases. If I didn't feel like I had that skill set, though, I could do all the networking that I wanted. I can get all the referrals that I wanted, but it's going to catch up to me. I'm not going to be able to perform on these cases. So my advice would be, if you want to get these connections, you want to make these relationships, well, find that really good skill set that you have as an attorney. Are you really good at pre-lit and trying to resolve cases? There's some people that have that dialed in. They're really, really good at doing that. Are you really good at just the negotiations part? Or maybe that you are really good at the trial component, but whatever that is, find your skill set, just be really good at it. And then, of course, it's going to be like a tree. Once you get the referrals, you're going to keep doing good, and it's just going to continue to spread. So I think, yeah, it's not just about building relationships, but be really damn good at that area that you like to do.
Yeah.
So.
And then I think also, we did that starting off, and then we started to layer other things on top of the networking. We tried out a couple lead sources, and I always remember the first time we had a lead source, it was for DUIs. Do you remember this?
Oh, yeah.
And we would negotiate the contract, and we thought that a $300 per month contract was life or death. We're like, dude, get it to $275 and he's got a deal. But when those leads came in, we hounded those leads no one's business. I would drive to Los Angeles for a $1,000 case. I mean, you remember how intense we treated those leads early on.
Yeah, I mean, and you have to be like that, right? You have to, it's going to take the work, you have to work hard in the beginning. You have to continue that work ethic, because if you don't have the foundation of doing that, there's no way you're going to succeed at that.
Yeah.
There's just no way. You have to have that mentality of I'm going to continue working hard. And I remember so many people were tell us from different companies oh, we're going to offer you this service, or we can do this or that.
It's all crap.
There is absolutely no magic bullet in regards to what is the best way for you to be able to market yourselves. I still continue to think that you have to do everything.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be able to continue to grow where you can do everything, because there's just not one true path for you
Yeah.
to expand. Like,
And that's what we found out too. We always wondered, how do these big firms do marketing? You come to find out, no one knows the precise answer. You just
No.
do it all, and you hope that combined it all works. But I think there are things that we did do. We concentrated on direct lead sources, right? That was our initial take. Like, we wanted something that would give us a direct lead compared to like a commercial or something passive. We wanted direct leads. Like, that was really important to us.
I remember when we started with the DUI leads, we were paying $50 a lead, which at that time was like
A lot.
so much money to us. And they would send out a lead to, like 100 other lawyers too. So the same DUI lead would go to, and then it's whoever called the person first. What we learned, what happened was the person would get flooded with calls, so it was impossible to get a hold of them. So we would send out a text message to them, and we kind of framed it just like we do our trial cases, where we're like, all right, what can we ask or say that's going to have them contact us back?
or add value. Yeah.
And we worked on this, and we came up with this plan of just saying, did you take a blood or breath test ? And every client would respond to it, because
Yeah.
they would think, oh wait, how does this matter? Maybe my case is going to get dismissed. And they would say, I took a blood. And then we would start the conversation, be like, okay, let's jump on a call, let's walk through that. And that's how we would sign up all of these leads. So even with the marketing aspect of signing these people, we'd be sitting there round tabling thinking, what can we do better than every other company that's going to hook this person?
Yeah.
You have to. And at the end of the day, it's customer service, especially in that field. If you're talking about the criminal law, I mean, people are dealing with something that's very time sensitive. It's affecting their life, their ability to drive. We realized so many attorneys were just not even communicating with their clients, right? Just a simple text or phone call wasn't happening. And that was mind blowing for us. We're like, how can we not, how could you be in this field and not communicate with your clients? So it's all those little things matter, and that's going to continue to spread to their friends, their family, their peers, and stuff like that. And so all of that matters.
But when it comes to leads, speed, consistency, and follow-up, I think we still do, right? I mean, if we get a lead, we are pretty darn quick to respond, to follow up,
Yeah.
to make sure they need anything. I think that's key. I'm always blown away when, let's say I send a lead to another attorney or someone else, and they're like, okay, yeah, I'll give them a call within a couple days. I'm like, that blew my mind. I'm like, a couple days?
Yeah.
I was like, you should call them in within 37 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of what our mentality was, and I feel like it still is. Don't be short-sighted, basically. Just because someone can't afford you or it's not a case that you take, you should give them the time, because you never know when they're going to say, hey, I talked to this guy, he didn't have to, but he spoke to me for a half an hour. And then we've gotten so many referrals just from that, from staying on the phone.
Oh yeah,
You know?
I mean, if you just treat people right, and they're in a desperate situation sometimes, and you really try to give them that time. I mean, time we know is so valuable, especially now. It's more valuable than ever. And so when you give other people that time, even if they, if it's pro bono or they can't pay for it initially, that's how you expand the network. That's how you find people that can trust you, and then they want to come to you.
So what if we're giving very specific advice to somebody who just started a solo practitioner firm?
Yeah.
What 3 things would you say you should do these 3 things, or hey, you should spend your money here if you're going to spend it anywhere? What do you got?
I would say reaching out to all the lawyers in your network and making sure that they know exactly what you're doing, and making sure that every lead that's coming your way is going out to them, so they can reciprocate. I would also say reviews online are key. Every person that calls our office talks about how we have great reviews, and people read the reviews. Just like if you're buying something on Amazon, you're going to look at which products have the best reviews, and you're going to decide that way. And that's how a lot of people decide on which lawyer they're going to go with. So I think that those 2 things are the key to building a company off the bat. And the third is doing really good legal work, making sure that every client is taken care of, making sure that every client walks out the door happy, and that it's a no-brainer when something happens again or to their family that they're going to call you. So we make sure, I think off the bat, we made sure to do all 3 of those things. And then as time goes on, you could start spending money in the right places for marketing and building your brand.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree. I think customer service is 100% like what you have to do. You're playing the long game, right? Like if you're starting off, and we were always the same mindset, like we're not here for like the short time. Like we're here for the long haul. Like we had a vision on what we want to do with our firm. Like if you're here for the long game, like the customer service of like how you treat people is so important. So I think that is number one, like what you have to do. Doesn't matter. It could start with one client. And then number two, people could say it's like all like woo-woo and, you know, not like a practical thing. I think your intention is very important. If you have good intentions on what you want to do with a client or how you want to help with your client, I really do feel that it can change the trajectory of like how your practice runs. I've literally had multiple conversations with other attorneys on this. Like, hey, Elliot, you know, like this is what I'm doing in my business. And, you know, like I've started to think, I'm like, no, my intention is to like, how can I really just help this person? Not like, oh, you know, what can I do with this case so that we can get the most amount of money? It's like, no, how can I truly help this person? Just having that right intention. And then the practice started to change. I'm telling you, multiple people I've talked to about this concept, and I truly believe in it. So if you have the right intentions, you want to treat people right, do the right thing for them, I think that it can help your practice.
Awesome.
Cool.
Okay. So Elliot, you gave us two. You said good intentions,
Yeah.
good work,
Well, no, I said good customer service.
good customer service, and then what was the third one that you think is the most? I mean,
Well,
practical, quick advice for somebody saying, "Hey, I'm opening up a law firm tomorrow.
Yeah.
What should these three things should I do?"
You got to spend a day out of the week where you're focusing on expanding your business, because we get so pigeonholed into wanting to do the legal work, right? We got to focus on our cases and stuff like this. But the reason why we were able to expand is we literally set a day out of the week, generally in the morning at the start of the week, where we're just focusing on expansion of our firm. Like, how are we going to continue to market? How are we going to expand the business? What risks are we going to take? Like, you have to spend the time, because if you don't spend the time, then you're never working on the business and you're just doing the law. If you're just doing the law, you're never going to expand your practice. It's just not going to happen.
And early on, you don't have as many cases, so you should be spending like 80% of your time or 90% of your time on business expansion.
Yeah,
Right?
and-
I mean, that was what we did.
Well, and like now, like it's easier than ever because of the online platforms. Like you literally could be a nobody. You can spend time on your business, expand your reach, because you can get a crazy audience by just having good content. Like now more than ever, you can spend more time on your business, reach more people, and send your message.
Yeah.
So like if you're not spending time on the business at least once a week,
Yeah.
then that's a problem.
And it's hard to do that. I mean, even now when we get so busy with other stuff, we have to be very intentional about, hey, we haven't worked on the business in a while. Let's sit down and see where we're at, see what we've been doing, what's working, what's not working. You have to look at how much you're spending versus how much you're getting back in return. I mean, it gets more complicated the more things you do later on, but I think initially what you guys brought up is really important. And then I would say, have a good website that's mobile friendly, have a social media presence, and then at some point you're gonna have to do some type of search engine optimization or something related to that. But that ties into reviews as well.
You know, the other thing too is that I feel like in our field, most of the time I see people that are trying to do it solo, right? Like they solo practice, it's them as the head, and generally they don't want to go into any type of partnerships. And I know that one of the biggest fights is generally about money, right? Like that's going to be the biggest hang up. But I would say that like for us, it's been very, very helpful to have the three of us, right? Like I couldn't imagine doing this by myself. And the fact that it's the three of us, I feel like it's given us such an added benefit. So if you can find another person, a partnership, or three, even though that, yeah, financially it's going to be less for you, it just, you can do so much more. You have such less risk, like having the camaraderie of having the team. I think that it's always better to have a teammate or a core group. Yeah.
With somebody that you really know well
Yeah.
enough, because, you know, as you always hear, business can get messy, but I always tell everybody, they say, how do you guys run a business? Do you guys fight all the time? I'm like, I don't think we've ever had a fight.
No.
Like a real fight, have we?
No, I mean we argue and we team up on each other, but like there's never been a point where
It's mostly against Elliot.
yeah, where we've actually
Whoa.
been mad at one another, and
Yeah.
we're also very upfront. So I think what's worked with us is we knew each other very well beforehand, and none of us were weird about money. Like at the end of the day, when we started the firm, we said, as long as everybody's working hard, then who cares who brought in the big case or
Yeah.
the other cases or how much money they're bringing. Like if Adam's really good at bringing in cases, then Adam, you spend your time bringing in cases, and we'll
Do
spend
it.
our time working up the cases. So we have to use each other's, to the best of our ability to like make the firm grow. And we've been tested through COVID. There were no cars on the road, and that's like how we make the majority of our income. So we were looking around, just being like, seeing the bank account go down and down and down, and our expenses, we had to continue paying staff members. And at that time, it was like, all right, we're not going to take a paycheck. You're going to take a paycheck, and we just worked to help each other and make sure that we'd figure it out. And it's always been teamwork. I mean, when I recently got my house, there was no question from the two of you of like, all right, you could take money from the firm to help with the down payment and another thing. So it's always been a team, and I think that has been, we've just never had a single issue with money on how to operate and because everybody's hustling.
Yeah.
Well, the only issue that we've had is me yelling, saying, stop spending money.
Yeah,
on
which is
occasion.
good. Which I don't
Yeah.
mind. No, you should
Yeah,
be
which
doing
I,
that. Yeah,
which
you
I
should
kind
be
of like
yelling.
sometimes.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, Mike's lucky because I work in the same physical building as you, so I take most of that.
That's right. You're shielded
And
from
you're-
most of the
yeah,
anger.
you're geographically in a different location.
And this is a good point. So eventually, I feel like we fell into different roles within the company. We
Yeah.
didn't plan it to be that way.
Yeah.
Both of you didn't want to touch the money or were really bad with it. So I was like, okay, let's not have you do that. Like Elliot, sometimes I'd be like, Elliot, you cut this client 4 separate checks for the same amount. You paid them 4 times. Is that a good idea, medium idea, or bad idea? And then we did that like 7 other times. We said, you know what? He's good at so many things. That is not one of them.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't be responsible for paying the client.
Yes.
What
Yes.
did he?
I'm always overpaying them.
Yeah.
So, didn't he send a client a check? I think it was for like $6,000. It was just a $6,000 check, but he paid him twice.
Yeah.
And then the client said, "Thank you for the money," and then we said, "Sorry, we accidentally sent 2. Can you send it back?" And she said,
was
"No."
good.
It's
Yeah,
so
we
she
never
was
weird.
heard
gone.
from her again.
That phone
She-
number stopped working
Yeah,
like that same day.
Yeah, that person was just gone.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Who
to
I
be
trusted.
fair, I mean, Elliot's done it, I think, on the top of my head, at least with 6 clients where they got paid twice or maybe 3 times. And I started to add up how much money he's overpaid. I was like, you know what? At this point, we could afford a accountant at the firm. But, so like you'll find out what things you either are good at or, not that we like it, but if we're good at it, that's what you get stuck with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is that we have different risk tolerances at the firm, but I feel like we were all okay with taking on a pretty significant amount of risk so that we can expand the firm, right? Like the only way that you're going to feel comfortable growing a firm is if you take risks on other people, right? Like hiring people that we think are going to be great attorneys, good staff members. Like those are risks that we are taking to expand, but those were great risks because without a good team, like we can't do it by ourselves.
I think that's a good point. I think a lot of people get scared to take on quote unquote a big expense like another employee, but I think you limit yourself so much by not taking those calculated risks. Don't go hire 20 people, but
Yeah.
taking on key roles and key people that are going to do a good job, it lets you do what you're good at more so, and you can expand your business. I think people are a little too risk averse when it comes to that part.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
And you want to find the stuff like we said, like what you want to focus on. If we want to just focus on trying cases, or if you want to focus on just doing the marketing part, like we need to free up our time from running the business to be able to do that. And so since that was our focus, like that's what we wanted to do from the beginning, like we've been slowly able to do that, like give us more time so we can focus on the trials, focus on just fostering relationships. And so like that's like the best part is that it wasn't that long ago. We didn't like plan that long. It's only been a couple years where we've really been able to dial that in and go, okay, now our time is freed up so that we can focus on trying these cases and focus on the other aspects.
So I feel like we've talked about marketing, we've talked about kind of hiring good personnel, but I would say, so there's the marketing side, and then there's the law firm organizational side. And I think Michael's done a really good job about trying to figure out what processes to put in place. And that includes case management systems, that includes the way in, the life cycle of a case, how it goes through and how it moves through the firm. I feel like we're always trying to figure out better ways to make it more efficient. And especially with all the technology now, I feel like Michael's always thinking about what new case management should we use? How do we make things more automated? I feel like that's been a big shift, and it's always changing, and so you have to be okay like starting over.
Well, thank you for recognizing my hard work finally.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we
Just for the podcast.
I mean, we were spending the staff was spending so much time doing intake, creating a DocuSign, doing all that stuff. So I just said, should be automated. You get the person's name, their email, their phone number, and then you hit send, and it should auto draft a retainer agreement and send it out. And then when the client signs it, it notifies you. And everything that is kind of just grunt work should just be automated. So we started that from the initial intake to now we use a company that does a case status for the clients. So they will see where their case is on. There's an app that they can open up, and it'll tell them exactly where their case is at and give a full explanation. Nice. So we do everything we can to automate the experience, because at the end of the day, like, we're in the customer service business. Like, every client, the biggest complaint is we don't ever hear from our lawyer, like, we can't get a hold of them. So making sure that we have case managers in place that are just there to make sure that our clients are getting the best treatment, and calling them, every several weeks to make sure that they're okay and that they know that we're here working on their case and we're tracking their treatment. So I think that's a big way to set yourself apart as a law firm. I used to work at the Ritz-Carlton, and the biggest key there was customer service and how do we set ourselves apart.
Were you an executive vice president or something?
I played a very big role there. I'm not allowed to talk about it, but what we would do in valet is we would have microphones, and when somebody pulled in and, it was, let's say, Mr. Johnson wearing a white jacket, I would phone into the person at the door saying, Mr. Johnson's walking in with the white jacket. And they would be like, oh, hey, Mr. Johnson, welcome back. And Mr. Johnson would be shocked that we remembered his name. And then I'd put in a preference of, like, Mr. Johnson likes this, this, and this. He likes Coca-Cola. Do not serve him Pepsi. And we would have these preference cards where they would send it to his room, and they would remember for his next stay. So if he stayed somewhere else in a different location. So setting yourselves apart in the customer service field is like what we try to do at the law firm with our clients.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's important. You have to, especially in our field. Like, we want to make sure that people really feel like they're being taken care of, in addition to the fact that, like, they're dealing with a really tough situation in their life. So do good legal work and have really good customer service.
Yeah. And we remember what it's like when we didn't have much money and we'd have to bring on other law firms to help us with the cases. Mm-hmm. And they wouldn't work up these cases as hard as we'd work them up. And, at the end of the day, we'd have to give them half the fee. I think there was one that I specifically remember where Elliot called after and said, hey, we did all the work on this. Like, what if we take 60% and you take 40%? Mm-hmm. And the attorney was like, well, you're right. Mm-hmm. You did do most of the work, but we've got a contract, and, I'm not going to change the fee. And we're like, okay, yeah, you're right. Yep. But that's, we're never going to use that lawyer again. And at the end of the day, we've been brought on to cases just recently where we were just brought on, and then a month later the case settles and we waive our fee, because it's like, that's how you're supposed to treat people. And we remember being in their position, doing most of the work, and then having to give away half the fee. So it's just fairness and treating people right across the board, whether it's another attorney or it's your client.
Yeah, I mean, that case literally just resolved, and that attorney that brought us on, like, they were shocked. They're like, "Oh, you're not going to take any fee on this?" I'm like, "No, because this is your case. You've done all the work. We've literally just been preparing to jump in, but this is your case. The case settles. Like, you take the fee." And like I said, that's like, we remember that time when it was us bringing on some other firms. So like, having that perspective was really important for me, you know. So
Yeah.
it's awesome.
Yeah.
So we've done marketing. We've talked about that kind of organizational systems in place. Anything else that you would want to convey to somebody who's starting out, or like what was really important looking back now that was pivotal in helping our firm?
Yeah, I think that you want to be lean, right? Like, you want to have, if you're starting off and you're solo, like, I just don't think that it's smart to take on, you know, some lease at an office or have high expenses. Like, you should be spending the majority of your time fostering relationships, honing your craft on like the specialized legal work that you want to, you know, put out there, but like, keep your expenses very, very low. Like,
Which is not the same thing as don't spend money. It's spend money, but on the right things to get you business. Don't spend money on the things that don't get you business.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with like people wanting to try certain things, spending their money and trying to do marketing, because you have to do that. Like, for us, even if people told me like, "Oh, that doesn't work," or "That method doesn't work," I'm like, "Well, I want to try
make
it."
sure.
Yeah, I want to figure it out for myself. So even to this day, we're always trying to figure out other ways that we can, you know, send our message, put our marketing out there, even if people have told us that it's not a fruitful way. Like, I'm like, no, we want to figure it out for ourselves. So I have no problems with people doing that. Just be prepared that you might lose some money.
Yeah, I think, you know, we have Google, we have billboards and TV. And they all serve different purposes. You know, like, you know, we don't get very many calls from TV, but our friends see us there. So it's branding, you know, and the same with billboards. Like, how many people are calling us because they see, like, you know, 619 injured billboard and say, "Hey, I saw your billboard and I was hurt." Like, barely any. Like, it doesn't justify the price of the billboard. But the fact is I get texts every week that's like, "Oh, I just ran by your billboard." Also, like, and it's attorneys in town that know us, have seen us, that it's a reminder for branding to call us when something happens. And it also lets them know that we're doing well enough to pay for a billboard where they could probably send their client and they're going to be treated right. So I think you know, there's branding side of spending money, and then there's also the lead generation side, which is like more direct leads. And I say, if you're starting a firm, don't spend any money on the branding side. Spend it on the lead side, and then build up the branding side later when you have a bigger piggy bank.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just really do the billboard so my kids can see them. And they go,
I used to do it so my grandma sees me.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's a question. What do you think has been the biggest business failure that we've learned from since we started?
Well, like, so in the beginning, you know, when we're just starting out, we have more time. You're more willing to take risks. And I just remember in the beginning, like, we just wanted to try a case. So, like, you want to get in there, you'll take any opportunity. You know, there was trials that we jumped into midway during the trial, you know, midway through like a 6-week sexual assault case against the school district. So we were more open to that. And I wouldn't call it a failure, because definitely we learned a lot during those trials. But like, time is so important for us, you know, like, it really is. Like, if we're going to invest all of our time working up a case, not doing anything else with our other clients or other cases, like, it's got to be worth it, like, for us and for the client that we're representing. So it's like, I know that it's difficult to get into the courtroom if you're like just starting out and you want to find a path, but like, choose your cases wisely. Because I wouldn't call it a failure, but I'm just saying, like, don't just like jump into a trial because some other person, you know, is being forced to go into a trial because they're not making a good offer, and it's just a terrible case. Like, time is still valuable, so use your time wisely.
Yeah, I think we try to choose the right case to take to trial, where it's a good case, you've got a good client and serious injuries, and those cases, they're going to give higher offers. And sometimes they're not, but for the most part, you're going to get a decent offer if you push it up till trial. and you have to have the courage to say no and push that case forward because you think or know you're going to get a higher verdict. So not getting stuck taking the bad cases to trial. And the bad cases, some of them, I look at it and I'm like, we've got to reduce our fee and get rid of this thing. Like a jury's either not going to like our client for these reasons, or it's just not going to go well. So you have to look at those cases and choose the right ones to take. And that goes from intake to taking the case to begin with, where you don't want to get stuck doing something that you're just going to be trying to get out of for the next couple of years. And I tell my friends that are opening up their firm, when they send me, I'm like, send me the cases of what you think is a good case, and I'll tell you if you should sign it or not.
Yeah.
And I say, sign every serious rear end collision. Like those are just dead bang winners. They're easy. It's quicker payouts. You don't have to file lawsuits on most of them. Like build your practice starting with the rear end collision cases, and then start thinking about like the other ones. But a lot of times they'll send me a case. I'm like, don't start with that. Like that's going to ruin you.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big concentration. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, I think cutting your losses is a really important concept. I was talking to this one lawyer who was like, we have like 20 or 30 cases that are terrible and we keep spending money. I'm like, why do you still have the case?
Yeah.
He's like, well, we can't take a loss. I was like, you're taking a loss already. You're going to take a bigger loss in the future. Cut your losses. Like, dump the thing, waive your fee, have your client take home some money. It's a terrible case, and you're going to have to eat some costs. That saves you so much, not just money, but time, stress, personnel, and mind power, And so I feel like we've always been on board where we're like, slash this, cut this, stop the bleed kind of thing.
You've always been really good about that, right? Because I feel like early on I had more blinders around, like, try anything.
Yeah.
We'll go to trial and we'll win. We can overcome anything. We can't overcome a lot, because
But facts matter.
Facts do matter.
Yeah.
There's still things that we can't overcome because no case is a perfect case. There's a reason why it's going to trial. But at the same time, you're absolutely right. Like, why keep pushing a case forward if you think that you're just going to get completely crushed on? It's not going to. You think your client's going to be happy at the end when you've like sucked this much more time of their life and then you lose, and then maybe there's even a 998. So it's like, no, you figure out a way to, even if you have to, I don't care if you've had the case for however long.
Yeah.
You cut your fees. You figure out a way. Best interest of the client, you find that way.
And
but
especially
you're right,
as a new lawyer, because litigation, the stakes get high pretty quick, especially after expert exchange and expert discovery.
Yeah.
The stakes get high, especially if you don't have that many cases and you haven't been doing it that long. I mean, you can spend hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on a relatively simple case.
Yeah.
And if you're going there just to chance it, like, you should think about that before.
Yeah, absolutely.
So. All right, well, I feel like we talked a lot about business stuff, and I always tell everybody that's starting out, we remember how scary and like how new it was. We didn't know really where to start. Like, what do we do now? So I always say, like, ask around, talk to lawyers. The ones that aren't willing to give you advice or are for some reason scared that they might give you a secret, ask somebody else. I was like, there's no real big secret here. We're all trying to do the same, and there's enough business for everybody. So I say ask around, talk to as many lawyers as you can. Find the ones that are doing it better than you or that have been doing it longer, and just learn from people who have been in the industry longer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot. I mean, when we started, we'd call people up and our friends, and they would help us out. And new lawyers come to us all the time, and I'm like, listen, I'll teach you how to do that case for free. Like, let me walk you through this auto accident. Like, I'll tell you what to do. I'll tell you, you can work with our staff just so you can get off the ground running. And these are just people that I've been friends with a long time. And they're shocked when they did. And they said, I've talked to 3 other attorneys, and they're not giving me like any information. And I feel like they think I'm competition. And I'm like, the fact is like, we're all in this together, and hopefully all of us could there's enough cases for all of us to make money at this. So I'd rather help our friends out and teach them how to do this so they can get on their feet. So I think just treating everybody, and it's like that person may come to us one day with a big referral, and maybe they don't, but they speak highly of us in the community. So I think that everything matters, and how you conduct yourselves with other attorneys and also the clients, and even people like at the doctors that we work with, and our staff, and how great our staff is with the doctors, where we have a good reputation with them. Yeah. So it all matters, and we make sure to concentrate across the board on all of it.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that wraps up episode 3, and we'll talk to everybody next time.
Sounds good, man.